Your story matters, don't let it fade. When everything changed, you were made.
Everything changed when we were feeling our way through the social aftermath of the pandemic lockdowns. I was sitting in my favorite chair, checking emails on my laptop, and I clicked on a news report. That discussion about whether children should be going to school in person flowing into my ears struck something deep inside me. More than an ooh or an aha moment, this felt like a body strike, a tsunami level wave of concerns about potential future ripple effects that our children, that might affect our children's social future, coursed through my mind. Could these circumstances and whatever time cost our human processes needed to try to work our way back to some kind of social norm, could that steal time from what we know as the innocence of childhood? Could it cause an earlier loss of the joy of childhood wonder and curiosity? If that could happen, how could we possibly prevent it or at least diminish it? And I felt like I had to contribute. I had to try to figure this out. But what could little me possibly do about preserving the joy of childhood wonder and curiosity? At this point, I was no longer hearing the report. My mind was in a completely different space. I was churning, burning mental rubber, trying to come up with some kind of solution or some kind of thought. And after an undetermined amount of time of this going on, I did get an answer to one of those questions. Now, the other one wouldn't come up for like 3 years, but I had an answer. Yet it wasn't until the last few weeks when I was creating this talk for you that I actually came to realize why that struck me so deeply. And I'll tell you about that first. I started working at the ripe old age of 3. No, I was not a child actor, and my daughter can attest to the fact that I cannot act at all. And by the age 3.5, I was averaging 3 half workdays a week. And that didn't change when I started school. In first grade, we went to a back to school night. My mom, my dad, and I. Something happened there that I wasn't privy to, because on the way back from that, my mom was upset, bordering angry. She made a new rule. I couldn't talk to others about her work, that I worked, or days missed from school. And she never went to another school event or graduation. My dad went to all the things, but my mom refused. At some point, still in early, basic semi early childhood, my mom randomly mentioned one day that if I ever became a doctor, she would go to that graduation. So when my graduation ceremony for nursing school came up, I knew she wouldn't go. I really did not want to be in another something very important to me event that she refused to go to. So I didn't go either. I was also what was called a latchkey kid, which was an oddity in the early 60s. You wear a key to school so that you can let yourself in the house if no one's home, which for me was often. And each summer, my mom required that I go to summer school so I wouldn't be underfoot. Most summers, she also required that I go to camp, away to camp for 1 or 2 weeks. Now, camp was fun, but the reason I had to go hurt. When I became a mom myself, I was not going to require that my kids went to summer school or camp. and I really wanted my daughter to have at least one sibling. I was an only child, no siblings to play with. A couple of years before my daughter was born, my husband and I moved about 500 odd miles north of where we lived around Los Angeles. We wanted to build our own home on some acreage and raise our family in the country. But just a few years later, I needed to leave my husband when my daughter was only 13 months old. I was a critical care nurse, and this beautiful country area that we'd moved to had all of 3 hospitals in a 150-mile radius and a nursing school that minted new nurses every semester. Job flexibility, not going to happen there. To raise my daughter on my own, I would need to move again to a metropolitan area, and I needed a support system. So I moved us back to South Los Angeles County, renting an apartment until the ranch sold. Our living expenses were high. I was paying for the apartment, the property in Northern California, my medical bills from the hospitalization I had just a few weeks before realizing I was going to have to move again, and divorce proceedings. Did I mention childcare? More childcare than I ever wanted to have happen. Now, back in the metro area, there were fantastic flexible job options. I ended up working for a couple of temp agencies so that I could choose to work only day shifts, so I could be on the same basic time schedule as my daughter, and choose which days I would not work so that I could take her to events, all the things and special things that might come up that we would just do together. And I did not remarry, so my daughter didn't get any siblings. She did eventually go out and adopt her own sisters. In my childhood, I had very little time with my mom outside of our work, but that was largely because that's how she'd structured it. My momhood, I couldn't get enough time with my daughter. My issue with time and being around my children was literally the opposite to that of my mom. And it's these shards from these childhood experiences of why I had that visceral response to that report, and the moment that left me with 2 challenges to answer. Now, those answers didn't come at the same time. The second one took about 3 years. But that first one did come at the end of that mental rubber burning. And I was surprised by what it was. It was the answer to the question, what could I possibly do to make a difference in not having an early loss of childhood wonder? Storytelling. Storytelling has captured the attention and the minds and the hearts of we humans for eons. Oral storytelling is literally baked into our DNA, and children especially love stories. I'd become a storyteller for children. And it's something that I wanted to do since once I retired, since the first international travel I did with my daughter. But now these books had to be more than garnering appreciation for other peoples and countries and cultures. Now I'm called to write stories that help children work through today's increased social emotional challenges. And that takes a higher level of craft to tell stories that have transformational life shifts and illustrate positive character traits invisibly while the kids are just enjoying a great story. It requires me to make myself into a powerful and prolific not writer of children's novels. To be of the caliber that teachers and educators want their charges to read, that parents and grandparents want for their family, and that children want to share with their friends. I envision a set of characters that children can grow with. starting with the first series that be suited for middle graders, ages 8 to 12, then young adults, 13 to 17, followed by another series for new adults, ages 18 to 25. Did I mention I'd never written fiction or a children's book? But I am called to do this. Now, I've published 4 books, but they were all nonfiction. Now, I actually did kind of write an unfinished Trixie Belden-like story, Mystery of the Twin Valleys, cue the mysterious background music. But that's all. I had everything to learn about writing fiction, and I would learn it because I need to contribute to elevating the experience of children's lives in what is advancing towards a fracturing society. Now, for almost 3 years, I have immersed myself in everything I could find to learn about fiction writing. And that was essentially everything. Oh, sorry. I need a moment to breathe. For the last 3 years, I have immersed myself in this and uncovering what I didn't know. I didn't know. And it's been an amazing journey, but it's also been pretty wild. There were many 8, 12, even 14 plus hour days of classes and courses and writing and reading and studying. But now I've put pen to paper outlining a prequel novella for that first middle grade series that will also have a resource guide of different, cultural points and history and fun facts. And I want to include these things because our teachers need help. Our teachers, and only when I started researching what the teachers would find valuable in these resource guides that I wanted to do, did I learn the magnitude of the overwork, the curriculum, and the stresses that our teachers have been struggling with since the pandemic, and realize that that is stacked on top of the fact that our teachers have been overworked for a long time before that. But it would be a few years before my books are actually out and released, and the teachers needed help now. But there was something I had that could help them. There were different self-care practices that I have learned through my life, and a couple of those take less than 2 minutes once learned, and you can do them anytime, anywhere, so that could be helpful for teachers. But how can I get this out to them? Well, newsletter and blog that I was going to start to build community for the books, I'll need to start trying to reach out and connect with some teachers so I can get that to them in that way. And there are other not so short time self-care practices that have helped me move through life crises. And believe me, the difference of going through a crisis without any and then with even one powerful one are huge. Back in 1995, I suffered a significant physical injury during an encounter with a very tall, very combative patient who ended up collapsing on top of me. That left me with a pretty indescribable type of pain. The pain wasn't sharp, it was a pressure, and it was like internal pressure going to the outside, like it wanted to leave me, through me. And that was without moving. Any kind of action, motion just accelerated that. Yet, I was determined to get back to my physically demanding job. Does that make any sense? No, particularly at that point. But my mind had shrunk down to this little capsule. That's all I could see. I had to do that. If I couldn't do that, whatever kind of work I would have would be less, and I wouldn't earn enough, and I wouldn't be able to take care of my daughter. And I was in this ridiculous spiral. I did manage to get back to work a year-ish or so later, but my response to that crisis was more than unhealthy. It was personally damaging. I wasn't able to see possibility, even consider that there might be a different kind of job that I could do that required my knowledge, skill, and experience not be physical, and still be about the same pay. Until when I did get back to work, within 20 minutes of that first day, it became painfully obvious that I wasn't going to be able to continue that pretty much at all, let alone full time. So I had to expand my thinking and start considering what other things I could do. And once I did that, I did find something else. And lo and behold, it ended up being in the hospital that I had been working at. And it was fine. But I could not see possibility before that, which is not my normal state of being. Normally, I'm all about possibility. But my response to that crisis was ridiculous and damaging. Now, fast forward 11 years. I'm at work, different work, excuse me. I get a call. Lab results from a biopsy. Your biopsy results show that you have metastatic breast cancer. We need you to schedule an appointment to speak with a doctor. Hmm? That can't be what she really said. That's not possible. That's not real. Oh, jeez. If that's real, I have to get my head around this. How am I going to get my head around this? I have to have my head around it, and I have to be in a certain place before I can even tell my daughter. And I was scared, but it was not the paralyzing fear that I had with my back injury. When I got home, of course, the doctor's office was closed. I started doing some research, actual strategic research. I'm sorry, I'm getting too into that. I need to move on. Um, anyway, my prognosis was crummy because I could only take half of the treatments because of my premenopausal, and this cancer journey was harder and nastier than my back injury. But I rocked this crisis. I really rocked this crisis, and I didn't understand what the difference was. It took a while. I did try to find out, and I did. I'd started using a powerful audio technology called HoloSync daily, 8 months before I got that biopsy call. And when I looked deeper into that, it also calms the areas of the brain responsible for stress, procrastination, and impulsive behaviors. Wow. I discovered what I would end up calling a self care tool, and now I call it a true self care tool. Now I have a list of 6 of those that I love and use. And that was the answer to the second question: what could we possibly do to try to defer or prevent a loss of the joyful childhood wonder? But it wasn't just for teachers. It was more than for teachers or even homeschooling parents. This was pretty much for humans at large who are stressed, overworked, overwhelmed. With few of us can identify with that. And the answer changed only by one word: widely share these tools. So that's what I'm about. And my visceral response to that report was because between mine and my daughter's childhood traumas, even with my commitment to her that she would have plenty of mom time, a mom that would be there to do all the things, even if I couldn't give her siblings, her childhood had its own unexpected problems, undesirable results that impacted our together time. So even with great intentions and our best efforts, life shifting stresses happen. But there are tools that can help beyond just me time, true self care that can elevate your daily living experience, and others, some that even help you move through life crises. True self care increases your energy, your mental bandwidth. It allows you to show up better for yourself and is the genesis of giving the best possible care to your loved ones. And you even show up better with all the people that you encounter. Now, you may not be a parent or a grandparent, but you are someone's child, as are your parents and your grandparents. Across generations, factors that impact and cause life disruptions can change. But across time, challenges and disruptions persist because they're literally a fact of life. So much can be gained in a world if we would each take better care of ourselves. A world of more ease, more kindness, less destruction. Isn't it time we consciously take action to take care of ourselves and others, elevate our daily life, and empower ourselves to move through life crises with more ease? How grand would it be to be a part, an active part of shaping that world? Thank you.
Your story matters, don't let it fade. When everything changes